The room felt heavy with unspoken energy, thick with anticipation. His eyes lingered on me longer than usual, full of something restrained but barely held back. I turned to face him, and the tension between us shifted, less subtle now, more certain. Without saying a word, I lifted my fingers in a small gesture that invited him closer. I watched the way his body reacted, a sharp breath, a twitch of muscle, before he stood and came toward me. He pressed his body against mine, arms circling my waist. Every breath he took seemed to draw me in closer, and with each subtle movement, a wave of warmth rolled over my skin. I whispered for him not to stop, barely able to speak. The air around us pulsed with energy, but eventually, it softened, and we settled into each other. In that moment, we were still, sharing silence that somehow said more than words ever could. His fingers traced slow, gentle lines along my back, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with mine. It felt peaceful, but that stillness came with a strange edge. I tilted my head slightly to watch him and said he seemed distant. He gave a quiet laugh, lost in whatever thoughts he wasn't sharing. I smiled, letting my fingers drift lazily across his skin. I could sense something in him, a hesitation, quiet but unmistakable. And yet, there was something beautiful about the way we'd connected. I tucked myself closer and told him softly that it had been a wonderful moment. He agreed, just as softly. As we lay there, my fingers continued drawing slow, lazy shapes across his skin. After a pause, I asked him if he'd ever thought about deepening our experiences, making things more intense or thrilling. He inhaled sharply, a small but telling sign. I shifted onto one elbow and leaned over him, watching his face carefully. I reminded him that we'd always been open, always willing to explore, but what if we took that one step further? He didn't respond right away, but I saw something change in his eyes. The silence stretched out between us. I encouraged him to tell me. I was sure the idea had crossed his mind before. And then, slowly, he nodded. He took a breath, his tone cautious but steady, and admitted there was something he'd been thinking about. My stomach fluttered with curiosity as I pushed him to share more. He ran a hand through his hair and looked at me with a seriousness that made my own breath catch. He finally said it. He didn't want to explore with another man, he was imagining something different. He wanted me to try something, with a younger woman. The words seemed to hang in the air, louder than they were meant to be. My heart pounded, not from fear exactly, but from the swirl of emotion that came with such an unexpected confession. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. I wasn't sure if what I was feeling was confusion, excitement, or something else entirely. Days passed, and his words kept echoing in my mind. I would be brushing my teeth or folding laundry, and suddenly, there they were again. I couldn't seem to escape them. No matter how much I tried to distract myself, the thought would come back, uninvited but persistent, demanding my attention. At first, the whole thing felt ridiculous. It wasn't something I had ever pictured for myself, being with another woman, especially with him watching. It should have been easy to dismiss, but the idea clung to me in quiet, persistent ways. The more I thought about it, the less foreign it seemed. That strange curiosity began to grow, slow but steady, whispering through my thoughts when I least expected it. It wasn't just the idea itself, it was the way he had looked at me, the tone of his voice, the energy between us that night. I knew that something like this could shift the balance of our relationship. And wasn't that part of what made it so unsettling? I couldn't help but wonder, what if I went through with it and actually enjoyed it? What if it changed how he saw me, or how I saw myself? It felt like standing on the edge of something unfamiliar, something thrilling and terrifying at the same time. Still, through all the confusion, there was this strange pulse of excitement that wouldn't go away. Every time the thought returned, it came with a kind of adrenaline I couldn't deny. I knew without a doubt this was what he wanted. It was written all over him. And strangely enough, I found myself wanting to give that to him, not out of obligation but out of genuine intrigue. I wasn't sure how it would all come together, or who would even be involved, but I knew I was going to move forward. Somehow, his fantasy had started to evolve into something we shared. It had taken root in me too. The days that followed blurred together. I tried not to overthink it, even though my mind kept circling back. I had already made my choice, and that decision only made the anticipation grow stronger. Every look between us, every casual touch, felt charged now. I wasn't just going along with it, I was diving into it. By the time everything was ready, the nerves that had once filled my chest gave way to a buzz of exhilaration. Everything felt perfectly aligned, the person, the moment, the setting. All that was left now was to see how he would react. That morning, as we lay in bed, I glanced over at him. He was still half asleep, breathing slow and steady, unaware of the firestorm quietly building in me. I leaned closer and whispered, soft but sure, that he needed to be home by 8. No questions. Just trust me. He blinked at me, amused, a small smile forming on his lips as he asked what was happening at 8. I met his eyes just long enough to let him know something was coming, but not what. His curiosity flared, but he knew me well enough not to push. He stretched and nodded with a quiet exhale. I'll be there, he said. And just like that, the countdown began. His fantasy, our fantasy, was about to become real. The evening seemed to arrive faster than I had expected. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, I held myself calm on the outside, but inside I was a whirlwind, nervous, excited, unsure, and yet completely charged with anticipation. He had no idea what was waiting for him, and somehow, that made the moment even more thrilling. I took his hand gently, my smile giving away just enough to keep him curious. Come with me, I whispered, leading him down the hallway. At the end, a door stood slightly open, warm light spilling from within and casting a soft glow onto the floor. I heard him exhale lightly behind me as we stepped inside. The shift in energy was immediate. Something about the air felt thick with tension, like we had crossed into a new dimension of ourselves. And then he saw her. She was already there, seated at the edge of the bed like she belonged. Her posture was casual but confident, the kind that made it clear she was in control of her own story. Her eyes moved from him to me and held there, unreadable but captivating. I glanced at my husband and saw the subtle changes in him. His breath slowed, his shoulders stiffened just slightly, he was fully aware, fully present. Every unspoken emotion flickered across his face as I tried to read him while steadying myself for what came next. She reached out, barely touching my wrist at first, her fingers tracing a line up my arm. It was a featherlight graze that sent my heart into my throat. I couldn't stop watching her, or the way my body responded so naturally to her presence. When she kissed me, it wasn't rushed or forceful, it was slow, intentional, like we were testing the weight of it, tasting something new. Everything from that moment forward happened faster than I could process. My body moved on instinct. I leaned in, guided by sensation rather than thought, my hands finding her waist and resting there as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I heard a breath behind me, his breath, quiet, steady, watching. He didn't interrupt or interfere. He was simply present, witnessing it with the same intensity I was feeling. She took her time. Her hands roamed beneath the edge of my top, exploring gently, teasing my skin with warmth that spread through me like wildfire. I wasn't prepared for how responsive I would be, how effortlessly she seemed to read me. Each slow touch pulled me deeper, disarming and exhilarating all at once. Then she took control completely. Her lips left mine and began to travel downward in a slow trail, brushing along the base of my neck and over my collarbone. I barely noticed when my shirt slid off. It felt like my skin had known this would happen before my mind did. Her touch was soft but sure, her mouth tracing paths that made my breath catch. With each new movement, it felt like she was peeling back more than just layers of clothing, she was reaching into parts of me I hadn't known were waiting to be found. I wasn't just surrendering to her physically. I was surrendering to something I hadn't expected, the part of myself that had wanted this too. The sensation that followed was unlike anything I had anticipated. A gentle stroke along my hips sent an electric current through me, and without hesitation, my body responded on its own. There was no urgency in the moment, only a slow build, a layering of desire that unfolded like a whisper. A rush of heat bloomed deep within, stealing the breath from my lungs and making me still for just a moment, suspended between thought and instinct. Her touch shifted, growing more certain, more deliberate. It wasn't just the warmth of her fingertips, it was the way she moved with intention, guiding me into a space I didn't know I'd been waiting to enter. My breath became shallow, my heart beat loud in my ears, as her every motion pulled me further away from anything that wasn't right here and now. I was immersed, completely surrounded by a sensation that felt both foreign and intimately mine. She had a rhythm, slow and patient, and somehow it made everything around us feel still. Time lost its grip on me. Every caress, every glance, anchored me deeper into the moment. But then, just beyond her, something shifted. A quiet sound, almost imperceptible, pulled at my awareness. I turned my head slightly, my vision soft around the edges. There he was, my husband, still in the chair. Though his posture was tight, like he was holding something back, he hadn't moved. His hands gripped the armrests, his chest rising and falling with slow, deliberate control. But his eyes, those eyes, were locked on me with a focus that sent another thrill rushing through my body. He didn't say a word, yet everything about him radiated intensity. The air was heavy with something we couldn't name, something both sacred and fragile. He wasn't just a silent onlooker anymore. I felt it in my bones, he was part of this. This was no longer just my journey, or hers. It was ours. Our gazes locked across the space, and I reached out, just a small gesture, my fingers lifting as if to say, I see you. You're still part of this. That was all it took. His hands loosened, his body shifted, and then, slowly, decisively, he stood. And when he took a step toward us, everything in the room changed. The atmosphere deepened, crackled, as if the energy had surged. Before I could even look up, I felt him behind me, his heat, the weight of his presence, undeniable. His hands found my waist, gripping with a certainty that made me tremble. When I tilted my head to look at him, our eyes met and held. In them, I saw everything we hadn't said: permission, desire, fear, trust. Then, without a word, he leaned in and kissed me. And it wasn't just a kiss. It was a declaration, a release, a merging of everything we were trying to navigate, this new chapter, this risk, this need to feel something real again. His lips were soft, but the meaning behind them carried the force of 1,000 unsaid things. I let myself lean into it, into him, into us. There was something soft and sacred in that release, in the way I let go into him. His warmth wrapped around me like a familiar blanket as his hands moved over my skin with the ease of someone who knew every inch of it. Then, in the softest breath against my lips, he whispered, "Thank you." The words alone could have unraveled me, but it was the way he said them, like this moment held everything he'd ever wanted, every unspoken longing he'd carried, that made my breath catch. Before I could fully absorb it, she shifted behind me, a subtle movement that I felt even before I turned to look. She was watching, not with jealousy, not with uncertainty, but with a kind of quiet power. Her smile was knowing, calm. Her gaze moved to him, studying the way he looked at me, and then she leaned in, trailing her fingers down the length of his stomach until he exhaled sharply, the sound involuntary, primal. I didn't look away. I couldn't. I kissed him again, more deeply this time, letting my hands tangle in his hair, feeling the way his body trembled under the weight of it all. His breathing slowed and deepened, every soft gesture from her guiding him into a deeper surrender. I felt his hands tighten on my back, firm, kneading, and when a sound escaped from deep in his chest, pressed between our lips, it stirred something fierce in me. The way he responded, it moved through me like a current. His grip on my hips grew more urgent, like he needed me to steady him. It thrilled me, to see him unravel like this, to know I was part of what brought him to the edge. Then I leaned into her rhythm, our movements in sync. My lips brushed along his jaw, then his neck, feeling the rapid thrum of his pulse. I traced it downward, settling beside her in a kind of silent communion. He was breathless now, head tilted back, completely engulfed in what we had created together. Every sound that left him made my chest tighten, made heat rise in waves beneath my skin. He moved with purpose, but not haste. Everything was deliberate, focused. She let out a soft breath, and I felt it against my skin, light and electric. I was attuned to everything, the way his hands steadied her, the tiny adjustments he made to ground himself, the whisper of her lips against mine again. It was overwhelming, yet I didn't want it to stop. Her touch, her breath, her warmth, all of it folded into me like a song I didn't know I already knew. But it was still him who held me most fully. His gaze, dark, steady, impossible to turn from, locked onto mine. The weight of it nearly broke me open. Every small thing he did seemed amplified by that look. The brush of his fingers, the sound of his breath, the moment our mouths met again, it was more than physical. It was deep and disarming. And in that moment, I realized something: it wasn't just a fantasy anymore. It was a revelation. My entire body tensed as the moment crested and washed over me like a tidal wave. I felt him beside me, his presence powerful and grounding. A low, guttural sound escaped him as his grip on me tightened, his body trembling, surrendering fully to the experience we'd just shared. He whispered my name, his voice low and gravelly, and then, for a beat, silence blanketed the room. His forehead rested against mine, our breath still unsteady, sinking slowly with each passing second. Then came the deep, quiet exhale, one of peace, of fulfillment. I let out a soft laugh, breathless and raw, my fingers still tangled in the sheets beneath me. I turned gently, brushing my lips against his ear, basking in the sheer warmth of his arms wrapping around me. He held me close, pressed a lingering kiss to my shoulder, and in that intimate stillness, I felt complete. Some desires live quietly inside us, tucked away where no one can see. But sometimes, the most profound ones find a way to rise, boldly, beautifully, undeniably. Maybe they're never meant to stay hidden. Maybe they're waiting for the moment we finally say yes to ourselves. Have you ever carried a hidden desire, something you never dared to speak aloud? What happened when you finally did? I'd love to hear your story. Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every single one. And if this story moved you, even just a little, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. There are so many more stories waiting to unfold. And takes only a second, but by subscribing, you'll always be the first to hear when a new story drops. And if you truly want to stay connected, tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. If this story resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might feel the same. Thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling. Until we meet again. Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction and is intended for mature audiences only. It explores adult themes, emotions, and complex relationship dynamics meant for storytelling and reflection purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. All characters, events, and scenarios are purely fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real-life situations is purely coincidental. This content does not promote or condone infidelity, manipulation, or inappropriate behavior. For educational, entertainment, and emotional exploration only. Always communicate openly, set boundaries, and seek support in real-life relationships.